Hello, this is Randy with Excel for Freelancers, and in this video is part 2 of an Excel appointment scheduler in which we are going to be adding a multi-staff scheduling. We are going to be adding Google Calendar integration as well as Outlook calendar integration. So stay tuned, it's going to be a fantastic training. Alrighty, let's get started. I'm really excited today because this is going to be part 2 of the Excel appointment scheduler. And if you'll remember, and if you have not seen part 1, I suggest you do go ahead and go back and have a look at that video and download that application because we're going to take off from there. I've made several additions to part 2, the first of which is adding the months, so you can quickly select between months with some tabs up there. I've added a drop-down list of staff. I've added the ability to send to Outlook if you click this. I've added the ability to send to Google Calendar, and I've added a default duration. As well, along with the staff drop-down list, I've added a staff sheet where we can add multiple staff, their emails, as well as assign a specific Outlook calendar and a specific Zapier webhook for Google Calendar, in which I'm going to get into. All right, let's go ahead and go over the on-sheet changes. Now, in order for us to track employees, we also want to add them to our scheduling database. And if you'll remember in part 1, we've created a sheet for each individual year of scheduling, and this holds our scheduling data, so that's really important. And we also have the ability now to schedule multiple staff, and I did not want to create additional sheets for additional staff, so what I decided to do was include those additional staff, but what I've done is I've separated them and I've put the additional staff in the rows below. As you can see here, now our data extends way below. Okay, and I'll show you how we did that. First, what I want to do is I want to know what staff has been selected. So if we scroll over here, right, I've added the selected schedule row here, which is 12. Okay, this is the selected schedule row. So that's going to help us out. So when we select a specific row, like as in 13, it's going to know. Okay. And next up we have the scheduled staff row, and what I want to know is which staff is selected. Okay, and the staff here, in this case Lisa, which is row 5, as you can see here. Okay, so if we go ahead and change that staff, I want to know what row on the staff, and now we've changed it to Fred, which is row 4. Okay, so if we look back and we see row 4, and it's a very simple, all we've done is use the match formula. Okay, and this match says basically what do we need to match? M2, and M2, if we look, that is the particular staff name. And then we are going to match it with a named range, staff. Okay, our named range, we've created a named range called staff, and that covers all of the names here. Okay, that covers all of our names here. And I'll show you that named range. Let's go ahead and go into formulas, name manager. Okay, and then we'll scroll down to staff. And you'll see in this case, it's not just a straight named range. I use the offset. And why do we use this? Because I want to track only staff that are existing. I don't want this drop down list to include the entire column, you know. So we use the count A. Basically what this does is it says offset count only those values with A. Count A means only those cells with values in it. So it's going to count those. Okay, it's going to say, okay, I want to use this row and I want to count all of it. In this case we have 3. Okay, so if we go ahead and tab out and tab back in, you see the dancing ants are on only those 3. Okay, if we were to add just 1, right, and then we go back into the name manager, going back into staff, and you tab over and you'll see now it includes that. So basically what it's doing is it's counting, and then it's updating the range based on this. And why is this important? Well, this is important because when Excel uses a drop-down list, I don't want to include blanks. I want this drop-down list to contain only the values, okay? And I don't want it to have blanks. So that's very important. So I love to use offset, the offset in Count A, when using named ranges. And there's other ways we can do it when those named ranges include formulas. We can include others as well, in which we will go over in future videos. Okay, so that's how we got our staff drop-down list. Okay, that is how we got our staff row. And basically it's saying we're adding 2, right? We're adding 2. Why do we add 2? Because you'll see the staff start on row 3, okay? So if the first staff, row number 1, is David, right? We don't want row 1, we want row 3, right? So we need to add 2 to get to that row 3. So that's why we have there. Okay, now I need to know also how do we can't, if you remember in the first video, we put everything, right, basically all the scheduling from rows, I think 2 in the scheduler up to row about 38, right, 38. And then on row 40, we included the summary, okay? But what I don't want to do is I don't want it to conflict. Now if we have multiple staffs, we need to keep multiple schedules, right? Because we can't conflict them, right? So how did we do that? Well, what we're doing here is we're going to add rows 50. For each particular staff. So if we select the first staff, right, we're not going to add any rows. That means we're not going to add any rows. So that means the first staff is going to be from 2 to 40. The second staff is going to be starting at 50, right? I just chose 50 because it's easier, all the way to 100, right? And then the summary will end up being on row 90, okay? The summary's on row 90. So, and then the third staff is going to be automatically sent information from 1 to 140, and then on row 140, we're going to include our summary. So this is how we separate staff so that the data does not get mixed up, okay? And what this allows us to do is add multiple. So if we add another, so for example, this tells us what row to start the schedule on. So if we select the third staff, right, Lisa Lopez, it's going to tell us, okay, started on row 100. But if we add another staff, okay, let's say Mary, okay, and we go ahead and go back to the schedule, and then we select Mary from the list, right, it's going to be a multiple of 50, okay? And so you'll see Mary says, okay, start her schedule on the row 150. So that allows us. And then we use this number in the VBA code to add. And I'll show you how that works shortly, okay? Because we've got a lot to cover in this video. We've got Google Calendar Sync. We got Outlook Calendar Sync. We have multiple staff to cover. And a little bit of a bonus on emailing schedule, which I threw in there but didn't tell you. Okay, so that's how that works. So basically this formula, how's that work? It's basically saying we're going to use that same match, remember? And then -1, because what I want to do, the reason I want, if it's the first staff, this is going to return 1, right? But I want 0. For the first staff, I want 0. So 0 times 50, okay, is 0. That means we're not going to add any rows. For the second staff, we're going to add 50 and so on. So this formula helps us track which row the scheduling starts on. Which row? First staff starts on row 2. Oh, messed up that formula. Bad Randy. Okay, so let's go out of there, and then and that up. Here's the reason. The reason why is we don't have. Remember, you see that error? Okay, let me show you that. Because we've selected a staff that no longer exists. Okay. Once we get out of there, because we removed Mary already. So let's go ahead and select on a staff. All right, good. Now we're good. Now we show the add rows as 0. All right. So what I was saying is. Staff 1 scheduling starts on row 2. Staff 2 on 50, okay, or 51, okay? So that's going to help us separate the staff. So that's why we have that in there. Okay, also I have added, what else did I add? Let's take a look. Oh, we added the duration. I've added a duration list because when I want to send to Outlook, when I want to send to Google, I want to know what the appointment duration is. What is the appointment? So this sets us a default duration. So it's very nice. This allows us to send it to Google and Outlook with a specific duration. So I've added this drop-down list from the previous one. So those are the ads basically on the sheet. I think we've covered everything. So that's going to really help us there. All right, so let's go ahead and go into the code and have a look at how those changes affect the code itself. All right, if you have the developers, you can get into VBA by clicking the Developers tab and then clicking Visual Basic. You can also click Alt F11. If you don't have the Developers tab available, just go ahead and click in the Options under the File menu. Go ahead and go to Customize ribbon and make sure the Developers tab has been selected there. Okay. All right, let's go ahead. Alt F11, we go. There we are. And let's go ahead and take a look at the additions here. Okay. One thing I've added a quick add is this code reset, and you really will want to use this in your codes. And this is going to help us make the code a lot faster. So basically, when we run certain codes, sometimes, like if we're adding a lot of data, every time we add it's going to calculate that data. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll add reset code. Like, let's go ahead and look at month select. Let's go ahead and add month load. Okay, I think we added it. Let me see where I've added it here. Okay, loading the month, right? You see I've added stop code and reset code. Okay, now what does that do? Okay, what it does is it turns off the calculation, sends it to manual when we stop the code. It doesn't enable events and it doesn't enable screen edit. So it turns all this off, right? And so that enables our code to run a lot faster. And then we have to make absolutely sure that before we exit the sub that we reset the code. That means we turn on events, we set the calculation to automatic, and we turn on screen updating. So those are really important. And I use this, so you'll want to see this code reset, you'll want to copy this and use this in your Mac. That really helps speed things up. But keep in mind that if you're running your code, right, and you have the stop code and there's a break in here, right, let's just say there's a bug, that code's still going to be stopped. So it's not going to calculate and strange things are going to happen. So what I sometimes do, let's just say there's a bug in here, right, and let me just show you. Well, let me create a bug. Okay, now go ahead and run this macro. Okay, oh, let's go ahead and I want to create an actual bug here. Okay, let's go ahead and I want to show you how that happens. Okay, here's the bug. Okay, so now code is stopped. So let's go into Excel and take a look at this. You'll see that under the formulas, right, calculations option, it's set to manual. Okay, and now we can't do anything. So it's important that even if you're going to use that, when you run into that, you want to make sure that not only do you reset the code, but you want to go into here and go to code and just double click here and play that. That's going to re-enable. So we're just going to click run and that'll enable it. So when we have a bug, you'll have to make sure that you do reset the code if you're going to use that. So be careful with that, because when the stop code, things in Excel don't calculate, when you have this. But it's a great tool to have when you want to use it. So it's really important. I wanted to go over that with you because I use that constantly, and you'll see that. You've probably seen it in my past, and you'll definitely see it in my future videos, how we use stop code and reset code macros to help us, and this helps us load the month a lot quicker. So you'll see it's a lot of data, but when we load the month, you see it's very quick, right? You see how quick that is? You see how quick all that data loads? And that's because we use the stop code. Let's go ahead and comment that out just so we can see the difference of how the speed. I don't have too much data, but if you've got a lot of data, it's got a big difference in speed. Okay, so I'm going to comment those two out before we load the month. Let's take a look at the speed difference on that. All right, now we're going to click January, and you see it's slower. And there it goes. So if we have a lot of data, it's going to be really slow. So that's going to really help us moving forward to speed up our code and use that. All right, so I'm glad we got into that. And let's go ahead and take a look at this code. And you'll see on the add summary, I've done something called, I've added here add rows. Okay, this is new. Okay, it's called add rows. And this is going to help us say, now, how many rows do we have to add? How many rows do we have to add for this schedule? And those add rows are based on the staff. Our add rows is this right here, this value here. Staff number 1, we're not going to add any rows. Staff number 2, we're going to add 50 rows. And that's going to tell us where to put it on the schedule. Okay, so add rows is B18. Okay, so you'll see on when we're adding the summary, we're going to have add rows B18. Okay, and now what I've done here is when we are programming add information to the sheets, right? We are adding those rows. So instead of the summary, right? Remember, the summary is always on row 40, but now it's 40 plus the add rows. If it's staff 1, first staff, this add rows is going to be 0. Okay, so this tells us if it's staff 2, it's going to be 50, right? Staff 2, 50 plus 40, which is 90, right? So that means that summary is going to go on row 90 on staff 2. And if you'll go into a database and we look at row 90, we see the summary is set here. Okay, so that's for staff 2, right? Okay, so that's going to really help us. And on staff 3, it's going to be 140. Okay, so that's how we separate it in the code, and you'll see that throughout our code, right? So when we comes to loading month, right, we're going to pull the data from row 40 plus add rows. When we're going to load the day, also we're going to load the data from 2 plus the add rows. Okay, so we're loading the information on M40, that's our day column, from the range add rows to add rows. So basically I've added this in, then that helps us differentiate which staff is which. Okay, so those are the additions there. All right, so that is how we handle multi-staff. I think we've covered that. Let's go ahead and get into how we are going to add to Outlook and how we're going to go add to Google Calendar. Okay, so we have Outlook Sync Max here. And basically the idea with Outlook is we want to be able to create a separate calendar, okay, for each staff in Outlook. And let's go ahead and go into Outlook. We'll take a look here. And here is Outlook, okay? And I've got just one calendar here. So what I want to do is I want to add one calendar for each staff. And in our Excel, we have 3 staff, okay? We have David, Fred, and Lisa. So let's go ahead and add a calendar in Outlook for each of those persons, okay? So what we do is we're going to right click here, click New Calendar. Okay, let's call it David, okay? And we want to make sure it's inside our calendar, okay? And click OK. Okay, so now we have David. We'll do that once more. New calendar, Lisa, okay? And new calendar, Fred, okay? And then we'll go ahead and select those 3 calendars so that we can view them. Okay, so now we've got 4 calendars. We don't want, okay, so now we have 3 calendars. We have David, we have Lisa, and we have Fred on Tuesday and Thursday. So we can see all the calendars at the same time. Let's go ahead and reduce that so we can see that in full. Now we've got those, so that's good. Now we're set up. Now we have, let's go back into Excel. And now what I want to do is I need to get the calendar ID. There's a specific ID number that has been assigned to each of those calendars. It's like an internal ID number, and we need to get that. And what I did is I added some code here. Okay, Outlook, see, it's not so important that you want to know. And there's really 2 things that you can get. You can get a calendar ID and a calendar name. Okay, we've assigned the calendar names and we've assigned the calendar IDs. You could theoretically use both. Okay, in other words, you could have a separate column here for calendar name, but we really only need the ID. And just in case, if you want to get that calendar name, I've left that code right here. This is it. Here's a folder name. So basically what this code does, first it says you select a specific row, and if you have not selected a row, in other words, if C and the active cell row is empty, okay, C, active cell, right? So if it's empty, right, and we click this button, it's going to say, please select a row containing the staff. So C must contain the staff, okay? So that's how this part of the code works. Basically, what we're doing here is we're setting a specific Outlook. We're calling up the Outlook calendar. We're asking the user to pick a calendar with this code, and then once the user chooses a calendar, it takes that ID. And it puts it in E. Okay, E with the selected row. So that's all we're doing. We're taking the ID and we're putting in calendar E. So let's go ahead and do that for each of those. On David, we're going to click, and I've assigned this macro to this button, Outlook Sync Outlook Calendar. I've assigned it. So let's go ahead, add to calendar. I've selected the row, add to calendar, and let's go ahead. Now this pop-up is going to say, which calendar do you want to assign to David? Okay, we've created it already, so let's go ahead and click David. Okay, and there's that long ID number. Okay, and we can repeat the steps for our remaining 2 staff, and Fred. Okay, and then Lisa. Okay, so it's a very simple process. And now we've assigned those. And the only reason you might want to name is because if these ID numbers don't really tell you if you're 100% sure that you got the right calendar. So that's why I'm saying adding the calendar name in an additional column might be helpful, okay, for you. So you can do that. Now we've assigned a specific Outlook calendar for each staff. So now when we schedule, we're going to know when we can do that, right? Know when. So now the only other code is basically send to Outlook, okay? Okay, so this code sends it directly to Outlook. And the first thing is, okay, so now back on the scheduling sheet, let's go back on the scheduling sheet, okay? This is our code. I've only added a little bit to that, okay? So these 2 rows are the only ones that I've added. Basically, it says if P8 equals yes, then send to Outlook. If P9 value is yes, then send to Google Calendar. So these are the only 2 rows that I've added. Now let's go ahead and take a look what that means. Back in the scheduler we go. Here is our initial settings. P8, send to Outlook, yes or no. P9, send to Google Calendar, yes or no. Okay, so let's go ahead and click yes on this. Okay. And let's go ahead and schedule something. Now we have Fred, okay, and here we can select whose schedule we're going to be looking at, okay. Let's go ahead and click on David, okay, and we have 3 different meetings. And now I've just created those calendars. Let's go back. Let's see if I can separate this, reduce this, so we can look at both things at the same time, okay. All right. And then I want to pull up that Outlook calendar as well so you can view that as we schedule an appointment. Let's go ahead and pull up the Outlook calendar now and move that over a little bit and reduce the size so we can see both on the screen at the same time. Okay, great. Now we've got it. So let's go ahead and we have a default. Let's see, we've got our default appointment duration at 60 minutes. Okay, I've included a lot of minutes. We'll just leave it at 60 for now. And let's go ahead and schedule at 10 o'clock. Okay, let's say meeting with Peter. Okay, all right, great. And now that's on the January 5th. So let's go ahead and locate January 5th. And there it is, meeting with Peter. Okay, great, under David. Now let's click under, let's go ahead and hide this. We don't need to see that. And now let's also on January 5th, let's click another staff, Fred Fretters. Okay, and then say, let's just call it lunch with Debbie. Okay, and there it is. You see how quick that is? And then Lisa. Okay, Lisa Lopez. All right, and we can just double click on this and hit enter. That's enough. Oh, great. Now let's go ahead and change the duration of it. All right, let's go ahead and change it to 90. And let's go ahead and schedule another appointment. And then meeting with Bob. Okay, there we go. And you see this one's 90. Now we double click on here and you can see it's set for from 2 to 3:30 p.m. already on Lisa's appointment. So that's working great. Now, how does this work? Let's go ahead and go into how we got this to work. Okay. And we'll minimize that, and let's go back into let's increase this again and slide this over so we can see how this works. Into the VBA model we go. Now under Outlook Sync, okay, remember it says if yes, send to Outlook. Okay, so then this macro is going to run. Basically, what we've done, and you can study this on your own, basically we've set a lot of things as objects, and this is called late binding. And you may very well have to add this to your calendar. Now go ahead and let's just see if this is run. Tools and References. And let's see if this works without the Microsoft Outlook library. You may have to. Let's go ahead and run this. Okay, it very well probably should cause a bug, but I want to go over this with you in case you run into that as well. Okay, now without that reference library, you're going to get this bug. Variable not defined. And why? It doesn't recognize appointment item. It doesn't know what that is. Okay, because you are required. So if you get an error that looks like this, compile error variable not defined, it thinks it doesn't understand that the Outlook appointment item because it doesn't have the definitions or the libraries, and those come under references. So we reset the code when we have a bug. We go to Tools and we go to References, and we find what the Microsoft Outlook, and depending upon the version of Outlook you have, right? This could be 13, 14, 15, or 16. As long as you selected the Outlook library, that's really important, okay? And so once we have it, and then once we go into Tools, References, and you'll see now it's been selected. Okay, so that's really important. We'll need to use that. We don't necessarily need it for email, but we do when working with Outlook Calendar, we do need this reference library selected. So that's very important. If you do get a bug, you'll want to make sure you locate your Microsoft Outlook library regardless of the number and go ahead and select that. Okay, and now we can run it without issue, without any type of a problem. Okay, so that's helpful, and that covers our library. So that's important if you do get that bug. So basically, we've also defined a staff row. We need to know what staff row, and we need to know what row we've selected so that we can add that to the schedule. And we need to know the appointment start, right, and the appointment time, the duration, the appointment name, and the calendar ID. Remember that calendar ID is important, and we get that from the staff page. So let's go ahead and say, first of all, we need to make sure that B8 is not empty, because that will show us that we don't have a correct staff selected. And if we go back into the schedule and we look under B8, remember that this is the staff. Let's go ahead and slide this over. This is the staff row. So if there's an error, it's going to be set to blank. So we're just checking there. If it's blank, it's going to say, the code says blank, then it's an error. Okay, so that's an important step. So we need to make sure that it's not empty. Okay, and then next up, let me exit out of there and go back into the code. Okay, so as long as it's not blank, we set the staff row. Okay, we need to know what row. And the reason we need to know the staff row is because we need to get that calendar ID. I need to know what row. Is it row 3? 4 or 5, because I need this Outlook ID. I must have that. That Outlook ID is in column E and whatever staff row is. So we need that staff row. We know it's column E, but we don't know the row. So the staff row is critical in order to get that. So the calendar ID equals sheet 3, column E, and then the staff row. That's going to get us our calendar ID. And then this is a double check. If you have not assigned a calendar ID or it's empty, we'll say, please assign a calendar to this staff. Okay, that's the message. Then it's going to appear right away, right, that it's going to activate sheet 3 and it's going to tell the user to go to that specific area, right? So that's kind of a nice touch, and I like that. So watch what happens. Let's go ahead and delete this calendar ID. Okay, go back to the schedule, click on again Lisa, which is selected, and now we have Outlook. Okay, and now it's going to say please assign a calendar. So the message, by now watch, now automatically it's going to go to the staff and it's going to select the cell. So that's kind of a nice touch. So now we can click on it and assign it. Okay, so it's a nice touch because it goes right to that. So that's how we do that in the code. Activate the sheet, go to the specific place and select. And theoretically, we could also launch one more macro. We could launch this macro, right? This would be kind of a nice touch. Let's try that. Okay, so now why don't we do that? So now let's go ahead and look. Now when we delete it, it's going to launch automatically that macro. Okay, so now when we double click this and enter, it's going to say please assign a calendar. It's going to go to the sheet and it's going to launch this, which is a nice touch also. Okay, so that's good. I'll leave that there. Okay, so that's one less step the user has to do. So we really want to guide the user on to help them, so that they know how to do it, and as much as we can automate. So it's always a nice touch. All right, so we've added that there, and now let's go ahead and now this line of code adds the Outlook application. So this basically starts Outlook and says, okay, Outlook application is equal to OL app. Okay, and now get namespace, and this is going to help us. It's not so important that you know exactly how to do these, but basically this gets the name of the Outlook. Okay, and then we need to know what row has been selected. Okay, so that's really important because we need to know what the date, we need to know what the time is, right? So if we're going to send this to Outlook, I need to get this 12 o'clock time. And how do I know this? That's why we always use the selected row. You see it's row 6, right? And when we select a different row, 9, okay? 9, okay, so I got to reset that. But basically, oh, it's a change row. It's not selected. My bad. So if we make a change, then it's changed. Okay, so it's not selected. Let me change that. It's changed schedule. Okay, so it's really a change schedule. So when we make a change, right, that's not necessarily selected, but when we make a change, we need to record that row. And in the code, how does that work in the code? Well, it's really simple. On the schedule, remember, on the sheet directly, on change, worksheet change, not selection. Okay, not selection. Worksheet change. All we need to do is we just take this range B1 equals the target row. Okay, set row for Google Calendar. Okay, so basically all we've done is added the target row to B1, and that's going to help us to know what row was changed. So that's an important distinction. So automatically we're setting whatever change we make. Okay, we need to record that row, not the selection. All right, so we've covered that because we need to know the time is L and the changed row. Okay, L and the row that's changed will get us that time, and that time is we need to know what time to send to Google and what time to send to Outlook. So that's why we have, let's go back into the Outlook macros. So we know that the appointment starts at L and the selected value. And now why did we add M? Okay, Outlook reads both the start date and the start time as one. And remember, in Excel, a time is simply a date plus the time. Okay, so a date is like a whole value and the time is a decimal value. So when you put those together, you get the date and the time. Okay, so we're combining the date and the time here. The date is M3, the time is L and the L in the selected row, which is actually the changed row. So we're combining the date and the time, and we're gonna send that appointment start date and time to Outlook. Okay, the name is whatever we have in the selected row, the name, okay, and the name is, remember, in this case, M, right? So it's this is the name, this is the name, and this is the name. So that's just the text that goes in the field. Okay, so we've got the appointment, and then the duration is P10. Remember, that's the default duration. Okay, in this case, it's 60 or 90. So whatever we've set in the duration, P10 is here. Okay, P10 is here. That's the duration. Okay, so all we need to do is get those variables so that we can send those to Outlook. And then the next code is simply sending it. And now we're going to set the folder. Which folder in Outlook they call calendars folders. Okay, so these are actually within Outlook, these are actually folders. Okay, you see how it says all folders, right? So they consider this a folder, this a folder, and this a folder. Okay, so they consider those folders. So that's why we say folders. Okay, they are actually designing them as folders. Okay, see all folders here. Okay, so that's why it's called folder. Okay, so and then we've set the appointment. We've created an appointment. We need to set an appointment. And then we need to make sure that we set the OL items, Outlook items. Okay, so we're basically just setting up the calendar. Okay, and we need to set an existing item. Okay, and this will help us. Okay, so for the first part is basically we're going to say if existing item is done. The reason we add this in there, what I want to do is I want to say, hey, if there is an appointment, we need to search. Why are we searching? If there's an appointment already at that time, then update it. If there's no appointment, add it. So this is two things. Basically, it says if the existing item is nothing, if there's no appointment that's been set, go ahead and add it. However, if there is an existing appointment, okay, we don't need this. If there's an existing appointment, go ahead and update it. So basically, you see how this one doesn't include the start, okay? So basically, it doesn't include the start because if there's an existing appointment, we don't want to change it, all right? At that time, we just want to update it. Maybe a subject, maybe we want to update the duration. We can add categories to this. And also, you see this is kind of interesting, move folder. Outlook adds automatically appointments to the default calendar. We don't want the default calendar. We want it added to specific calendars. So basically, if we don't add this, it's going to move that appointment to whatever your default calendar is, but we need to say move it to OL folder. Remember, OL folder is the calendar ID for that specific person. Okay, OL folder is, so this moves, this actually basically it sets an appointment on your default calendar and then it moves it to the one you want. So that's actually how it's working behind the scenes. Okay, so this is how this code works. I'm moving a little quick because we got a lot to cover and I don't want you falling asleep again. Okay, I'm watching you. I know you're going to be, all right, I'm watching you. Okay, don't sleep. So what we're going to do is we're going to basically say if it's nothing, add it. If it exists already, update it. So that's all that code is doing. Okay, so that's how that works. That is how Outlook, how we're adding it to Outlook Calendar. And you can break apart this code a little bit more and see how it works. This is some additional code that you may not want. I'll go ahead and remove that. I thought it might be helpful, but I don't want to get it too confusing for you. Keep it nice and clear. So that's all we're doing. That's how we add to Outlook Calendar. Okay, so next up we're going to be moving to Google Calendar. Google Calendar Sync, and this is a little bit shorter code and with something we've gone over before using Zapier or Zapier, I don't know how you call it, but let's go ahead and do that. Let's go ahead and add it to Google. First of all, why don't we go ahead and send to Google? Yes. Okay, and so what it's going to do is, and now let's go ahead and go into Google Calendar, and here's my Google Calendar. And once again, we're going to create some calendars just like we did in Outlook. Okay, so let's go ahead and click a new calendar. And as you can see, we have, of course, 3 staff, David, Fred, and Lisa. So we're going to create a calendar for each of those. David, okay, create the calendar. And now we'll create another one, Lisa. Okay, create calendar. And Fred. Okay, so now we've got 3 calendars created. Okay, and now we can go exit out of settings. And now we have, let's unclick this one. Now we have David, Fred, and Lisa. In Google, it's a little bit different. They're going to put all those on the same people on the same screen. It's a little bit divided differently, but that's fine. David, Fred, and Lisa. We have now 3 calendars with 3 distinct colors that Google had assigned. I believe we can update the colors to whatever we like. David, okay, so we can update calendars. We'll keep those the same. I like Lisa's orange. No, that's good. I like it like that. Let's do green. Okay, so we can see they're make sure they're very distinct and different. Okay, David, Fred, and Lisa. We have 3 different calendars now. Great. And if you remember correctly, back a few weeks ago, we did Zapier integration. And if not, I'll make sure to provide a link. If you haven't seen that, I'll make sure to provide a link because we're going to move fast on this since it's something we've gone over already. So basically what I want to do is I want to create a webhook, which we've gone over in the past, and I want to send it from Excel to Google. So we can do that using Zapier. And we're going to create a new webhook. And basically what I want to do is I want to create a webhook and I want to catch a hook. Okay, and I want to continue this step, And basically what I'm going to do is, if you'll remember correctly, webhooks, this part of the webhook is always the same. For every webhook you create, basically it's going to allow us to send from Excel to anywhere. In this case, we want to send to Google Calendar. So this part's always going to be the same. So what I want to do is I want to only copy this part. This is going to change for every webhook. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create 3 different webhooks, and each webhook is going to send to a different calendar. So what I want to copy this part only. This is the only part that's changed. Okay, I'm going to copy that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add that to, let's go ahead and start with David. Okay, and I'm going to add that webhook ID right here. Okay, what that's going to do is going to say, okay, this part of the webhook is going to change. I want to make this for David. Okay, so when we go back on, let's go ahead and click on David's schedule here. And let's go ahead and not go to Outlook, just Google for now. Okay, so now we have David's schedule selected. And let's go ahead and go to that next step. Okay, so it says make sure you follow this instruction. We've generated a custom. Okay, we did that. And now it's going to look for that. And so now let's go ahead and quickly run our code, and just by double clicking here, and it's going to send a webhook through our code, and I'll show you how that works. Okay, so it's going to look for that code, and it found it. Okay, so our test is successful. Let's go ahead and view the webhook. Okay, we have meeting with Peter. That's correct. 10 a.m. start, finish at 11:30. We've set it for 90 minutes. Okay, so that works. Okay, and I'll go over that with you, so don't worry about that. And so now what we want to do is we want to send it to Google Calendar. So it says that the next step is Google Calendar. Select that. Okay, and I want to create a detailed event. Okay, and then save and continue. And then I've already set up my Google Calendar. It may, if you haven't set this up, it'll ask you to connect an account, which is very simple. You just click the buttons, follow the steps, save and continue. Okay, so now it knows. Since it knows all my calendars. Now we've created 3 calendars. Okay, we want to select David. David's our first one. Okay, and now it says, well, what do we want to? We want to say, okay, meeting with Peter. Okay, because that is the summary. The description we don't need. It's optional. Location we don't. Start date. Let's click there. Start. Okay. End. Click the end, and that's it. It's just really 3 steps. Okay. And we have lots of other options. We'll ignore those for now. They're not required for our purposes, but you should look through them. There's so much you can add to this. Okay, and then we'll go ahead and send it to Google Calendar. Let's send the test to Google Calendar, and let's go ahead and, I don't even remember, let's go ahead and, I think it was the 5th, right? I believe there it is right here, meeting with Peter, 10:11 a.m. Okay, that worked out great. So the test worked. Let's continue and finish our step. Finish, and let's call this David Calendar. Okay, and then we'll turn our Zap on. That's critical. You need to make sure you turn that Zap on. Okay, so now let's take a look. Okay, now it's working. We don't need to add another step just yet. So here it is. Here in our Zaps, David is turned on, so we know. I'm going to go ahead and delete this, okay, because it was just a test. And now what I want to do is I want to pull up Excel. All right, and we're going to minimize that, scroll over here, okay, and let's go ahead and create a new appointment. Now we know this is David's calendar here. Let's go ahead and move it over here. It's much better. Okay, so we've got David, Fred. We've got them all selected. So as long as they're selected, they'll appear. Okay, lunch with Bob. Okay, it takes another second or two, a little bit longer than it does in Outlook. But there you have it, lunch with Bob. Okay, and that's working great. So let's go ahead and do the same process for the remaining two staff we have. Back into Zapier we go. Okay, let's go ahead and make another Zap. Okay, you see how quick and easy this is once you get the hang of it. And we're going to start with a webhook. Okay, catch a hook, and then save and continue. Okay, continue this step up. There's no child keys that we're picking off. Okay, and we're going to copy just this part of it, and this is going to be different every time. Okay, copy that, Back into Excel we go. All right, let's expand this so we can see what we're doing here. Back into the staff, and we're going to use this. This is going to be Fred's schedule. Okay, so we're going to copy and paste this right here. Okay, back into Zapier we go. And then we can say, okay, I did this, and now it's going to look, it's waiting. So now we got to quickly go back into Excel, back into the schedule, click on the right staff, Fred, I believe we're doing, and then we can double click this, and then now it's going to send that hook to Zapier because I just double clicked it, and go back into Zap, and it says test successful. Good. So we can always view our hook just to make sure. Lunch with Debbie, 12 to 1:30. Let's take a look at that. So it caught it. It caught it. Lunch with Debbie. Perfect. That's working great. Okay. Let's continue with that. And we're going to do the same things. Continue. And now we want to send to Google Calendar and create a detailed event. Save and continue. And then save and continue. We've already got that account continued. And now we're going to, we got staff 2, right? Remember, this is Fred. So we're going to connect his calendar on our web event here. So the calendar, and we're going to select Fred and go through the same steps that we've done before. The summary is going to be the name, start time, okay, and start time here, and then the end time here. We'll catch that hook. End time. Okay, good. We just those 3 fields is all we need to do. Continue. Okay, that looks good. Send test to Google Calendar. Let's go ahead and check that. And there it is, Lunch with Debbie. Okay, good, good, good. You see how they're in different colors now, right? Fred has purple, David has green. Okay, so that worked great. So the test worked great. And we finish. And let's go ahead and name it Fred Calendar, okay? And make sure we turn that on. All right, excellent, okay? And then we want to see it on our dashboard. So now we have 2, Fred Calendar, David Calendar. Let's go ahead, go back into Google. Let's go ahead and delete this one, okay? And now let's go ahead and test that out. And once again, reducing this, move it over, and we'll pick a different time. Let's see, breakfast with Tina. Okay, and then we'll wait usually about 2 seconds or 3 seconds, and then it will appear in just a moment. There it is, breakfast with Tina at 9 a.m. Okay, that's working great, and they're different colors. Now we just have to do one last one, and that is for Lisa. Okay, make a zap. All right. Starting with a web hook. Now you're getting the hang of it, right? Save and continue. Continue, and we're going to copy that webhook ID, which is right here, okay? And then, okay, I did this step. Now we're going to take that ID, and we're going to copy that into Lisa's column on the staff, which is here, right here, okay? We're set on that. Good. Now we're good to go on that. Let's continue. And it's still looking for the zap. It's not finding it because we didn't send it yet. Let's go ahead and send it. Okay. Back into the scheduling screen. Click on Lisa. Okay. And we just have to double click on any meeting on our schedule. And now it will find it. Okay, great. You see how it just found it? Test successful. I like to view it. You can too. Fred's meeting, 12 to 1. Okay, that's great. And continue. Good. Now we're going to send to Google Calendar, go through the same steps that we have done before, twice before, detailed event, save and continue, and then we'll go ahead and select Lisa's calendar here that we've already created. Add to the summary, which is the name, the start time once again under start, and then the end under end. So now we've created 3 different calendars, and scroll down and continue. All right, we're good to go. And send to test to Google. All right, let's go ahead and see this. There it is, Fred's meeting, and Lisa's in yellow. Excellent. Complete the last step, which is to finish and name our zap Lisa Calendar. Okay, and then turn that on. Excellent. So now we're done. Now we've got 3 different calendars, and they're all synced to Google. And let's go ahead and test that out. Delete our test. And now let's go ahead back into Excel. And we've already selected Lisa. And we will just say meeting with Peter. All right, at 4:30 p.m. Let's go ahead and scroll down so we can see that on this. Not there. Scroll down. All right, there it is. Meeting with Peter at 4:30. Perfect. So that's working just great. So how does that work? How did we get that to work? Let's go ahead and show you the code behind that so we can see how that's done. Although I think you have an idea because we did go over webhooks. Send to Google Calendar. The first thing we want to make sure of in the scheduling screen, if P9 is yes, send to Google Calendar. Okay, so if it's no, we're not gonna enable that. All right. Now under the Google Calendar sync macro, we have done this before, so we're going to go over this real quick. We've defined our objects and our name and our webhook ID. Webhook ID is new, okay, as strings. Those are strings. We've defined appointment start and end as dates. Okay, start and end are dates. We defined staff row, selected row, and duration as long. Okay, basically we're saying if, again, we're just checking to make sure that the staff is correct. We've correctly scheduled a staff. Okay, and also we need to make sure that there is a webhook ID. Okay, remember basically saying if the F in the staff row is empty, and basically what that means is that let's go into the staff. If this is empty, F, right, and the selected staff row, if this is empty, we need to go and make sure that we've created a webhook for that particular staff, which is why we have that part of the code there. Okay, and then the next is we're just defining the selected row. Remember, B1, that's the row. Okay, the duration is that duration that we've set under P10, just as we did in Outlook. The start date, again, is also the date plus the time. The date plus the time. And in this case, we need to set the duration. Okay, now the appointment end date is the duration plus this formula here. Now, why that number? Okay, that number is basically what 1 minute is. So basically we're taking the number of minutes and we're creating an actual time, a decimal. We need a decimal. I need to take this start and add a decimal to it, right? Because 90 or 90, let's say 90 minutes, and 90 doesn't really amount to minutes when we do the calculation. So in Excel, we need to add the decimal. So let me show you how that works. Okay, so in order to get a 1 minute, what we want to do is we want to make just a simple division. So basically equals, right, 1 divided by 24, okay, which is all the hours in a day. But we actually want to divide that by minutes. So to get that, we'll just do that. This number divided by 60. So this is going to get us the decimal for actual minutes. Okay, if we expand that a little bit under a decimal, we'll see how that translates into a number. Okay, let's go ahead and reduce that so we can see how that translates into a number. Okay, so here it is. Here's the number 0.00694, and we've rounded up to 0.0. So 1 minute is equal to 0.000695, and that is the reason why we've taken the number and multiplied it. So that is how we can see how that's done in the VBA code, why we use 695. Okay, so we've taken the duration 90 and multiplied it times the number of minutes, and that's going to get us the decimal format in order to figure out the end time of the appointment. Okay, and then the appointment name is also M. So what we've done is we've created a webhook, and you remember there's three. We've created a webhook, and the difference is we've created this. This is our default webhook. So when you get yours, you will want to make sure that the first part of your webhook matches this. Don't use my webhook, okay, because it won't get you anywhere. Yours will be unique to you. This number here will be unique to your account. It won't change for you for your account, but you'll want to make sure this is from my account, okay? So you want to make sure you use ones for your account. The webhook ID, okay, that is specific for each individual calendar edition. So remember, we have a different webhook ID for each one. We're taking that ID and we're adding it to the link here. Okay, and then so I'll make sure I'm going to put in a text here. So when you see, I'm going to just go ahead and say, add your webhook link here. Okay, it won't work unless you add your webhook link. Okay, so that's very important. You want to add that there so you can definitely see change this, okay, to your webhook link. So that's a very important part. And then we have the appointment name, just the three variables: appointment start and appointment end. So that's all we needed there. Okay, and so make sure it's not going to work until you add your link here. Okay, that's all you have to do. So here's what you have to do. You have to go in here, okay, go to your Zapier here, go into the dashboard, click on, once you've created your link or you're in the process, right, you can view your webhook, and just this part here, you see that right here, you got to copy that and paste that right in your code right here. That's all you have to do. Okay, that's it. And I'll get rid of this here. So that's all you have to do there. Okay, so it's very simple in order to connect that. Okay, great. So that is exactly how we've added it to Google Calendar. All right, and next up, the last one we have is email schedule. This is a cool little feature I wanted to add a little bonus on for you, as if since we're getting close to an hour and I better end this soon, we've added the ability to click on a particular, let me go ahead and turn this, since we don't have, let me go ahead and turn this off for now, because we need to make sure you put your link in before you do that. And then we've given the ability to email the scheduler, which is a nice fit. Since we know we have email addresses here, wouldn't it be nice if we could just email the schedule to our staff? So just clicking on the button, we'll create an email. Let me go ahead and reduce that. And we can put text in there, and we could say, so in a PDF format. So this is a nice feature that we can automatically add it to. Let me go ahead and reduce the PDF. So this is what it would look like. And so it'll fit the screen. And so here it is. So that's a nice touch. Now, how did we do that? Let's go ahead and go over that. And you see Lisa's email address is already in there. I have a subject that includes the month automatically. It's a variable, and as well as the name. All right, so that was really easy. Let's go ahead and take a look at that, how we did that. Back into the VBA model we go, under email schedule, and it's a very simple code. And we've done email in the past. We're not going to go over too much about that. All I did was set the schedule range, right? Dim it as a range, the file name, basically email address, subject, and message. Okay, first we set the schedule range to D3 through J40. We've set that range, okay, and that is basically this range right here, okay. And also what we did is we made sure that these buttons, I don't want them to print. So when we click slides and properties, right, and we go ahead into properties, we want to make sure that we don't want to print those buttons. So this is unselected. That's important. All the buttons, if you don't want to show that. So all we've done is made this all the way down, okay? This print area I've just said, which is D3 through J40. Okay, so I set that. Also, while I'm at it, make sure on your schedule when you hide this is for information. We went over this. You want to make sure you hide this because it's not important. And you'll want to hide these columns too. So you get a nice, the first two columns, you want to make sure you hide those, okay? And but for our purposes, I want you to see what's going on. I want you to see every part. So I'll unhide them for you. But when you release it, you want to make sure you hide this row and this column, okay? So back into the VBA we go, where we're going over the email. So also want to set, when we create a PDF, we need to save that PDF to somewhere on our computer. And then we also need to attach that in an email. So the first thing is important is we need to save it. But now everybody's computer is different. So what I'm saying is just save this at whatever path the workbook is. So wherever your workbook is located, it's going to save it there, which is kind of just a nice default path because everybody's computers, paths, and documents are different. So this kind of just sets it. And you want to save it as which is D3 value, which is the which is the name of the calendar, which is the name of the month. Okay, D3. So I want to save that PDF as the name of the month and the year. Okay, so that's what I've done there. I've saved it as, and I'm added PDF. So this is going to be our file name. Okay, now what I want to do here is I can't create a PDF if there's already one existing on my computer with the same exact name. It'll create an error, right? If I try to create a PDF with the same exact name, so this line of code says if the directory of file name is greater than 0, and basically that means if it exists, then kill it. Kill it means delete. Okay, so this deletes it if it's already been created. So this is kind of a nice, and then we have on air resume next. So basically, if it's not, it'll just skip this. If there's an error, it'll skip it. So that's kind of nice. So what that does is just automatically deletes the PDF if it's already been created. And now we're just saying the email is sheet 3 and B8. Remember, this is the staff row B8. D in the staff row is your email address. Subject, and you can put any subject you want, your D3 value. You know, this is the month again. The month, yours. So we've said the schedule is the month and the year schedule. Okay, so we added that in. And then the message is C, and the message is hi, and then I want to get their name, right? So remember, B8 is the staff row. B8 is the staff row. C is the name. Okay, so basically I want to say C, right? Whatever row is their name. Okay, so that's what we've done there. Here is your monthly schedule for the upcoming month, and this enters a new line in the text. Okay, please let us know if you can put whatever text you want in the subject. Okay, and then basically what I'm saying is set this page up to our schedule range. Remember, our range is D3 to J40. That means this is going to set the print area to the address. Remember, the address is this here. Okay, there's a few ways of doing this, but that's one way. And then this is the key line, export. Okay, this is the key line. Export as a PDF. The file name is the file name. The quality standard, include docs. Okay, include document properties. You can ignore print areas. No, don't ignore it. And you can also, if you want to display this PDF, you can just click true, right? And that'll display the PDF after we've created this. So you can also show it if you want it to launch. So that's it. And then all we've done is do the email. We create the email. This creates the email. Send it to the email address. Send it to the subject. Put the message in. And then here's the key. Attachments, add file name. Remember, this is the entire file name. Also, display. Remember, okay, display. That means I want the email to show. But if you don't want it to show, you want to send it right away, just click .send. Okay, and then comment this out. If you put .send, it'll send it without even showing the email. So, but you want to display it at first. But if you don't want to click send every time, just change that to .send. It'll send it automatically. All right, and then nothing, and then we've cleared it out. That is it. Okay, more than an hour on this training, but we had a lot to cover. Okay, so let's go over ahead and go review what we've covered today. We've added additional staff here, and we have an unlimited amount of staff. We can simply select the staff, and it's going to change and update the schedule accordingly based on whatever staff is selected. We have added both Outlook and Google integration automatically simply by creating yes, and that allows for multiple staff on multiple schedules. We have added months, so we can simply select the month here. It's a quick way to get to where you want to go. We have also added a default appointment time, so when you select the number of minutes, we can set the default appointment. And we've added email schedule, so we can quickly email our schedule, our monthly schedule, to whatever staff we have selected here. And that is the summary. That is it. Thank you so much for joining me on this amazing training. I hope you like it. Please share this with your friends in your favorite groups. And I always appreciate your efforts to view these videos with your likes and shares. Thanks so much and have a great one.